Back, I'm hearing like a soap opera.
I'm a financial advisor.
I've got nothing here.
Okay. Well, welcome to this clinic, all of you. And we'll be talking today about the Potomac Flyer and a little bit about the AP author program. And of course, I think it'd be remiss if we didn't begin by acknowledging a guy who really got me involved in the division and with the newsletter, Marshall Abrams. I remember the last time we saw him, it was at the last Zoom, and he was surprised us all by being in a hospital gown and looking pretty optimistic at that time. And it's very sad that we lost him. Most of you are familiar with the basic facts about the flyer. We escalated from 4 issues a year to 6 issues a year, plus a pre-minicon issue. And it's really been fun to be putting it out that often, because we have encouraged a lot more authors to step forward and submit material. And of course, the pandemic shut-in has led to an awful lot of modeling being done and has resulted in a lot of contributions. And we're very, very grateful for that. And I think we've learned a lot from one another at this time where we can't socially engage. We can at least engage through our knowledge exchanges. As you know, the flyer itself is a digital publication. And since the new board took office, our priorities have been first and foremost to try and promote our activities, the ones in which we socially engage, like mini-cons and open houses and workshops and outreach events. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened so much because of the circumstances. But I was pleasantly surprised to see that next week, we actually have the possibility for a small number of people to come together at Jerry Stanley's Hobby Barn for a build and take, or make and take, or shake and bake, or some such event. I forget what he called it. So it's a start, and that's the other thing we've been able to interact is via Zoom with these clinics, and I'm glad to see that there are at least 2 more events lined up over the next couple months. We also try and help one another through the flyer by exchanging information on modeling, sources of modeling material, tips on how to build things. That photo in the middle there is a little gadget that, as I recall, John Paganoni put together for rolling out shingling material using an old tape reel. And some of the other pictures there show stores which primarily have been, Nick Callis has been very good about finding places for getting materials and passing them along. And this coming issue, you'll see in terms of tips on working, you'll be seeing a great package of stories about the cutting machines that are out there nowadays. Matt Thompson has done something about the silhouette cutting machine. And we also have contributions. Bob Rodriguez used a cry cut, and a third person whose name eludes me right now, simply because my memory is fading, used a different device to actually execute designs in making structures. So that's something I think that everybody in the division should look forward to. And hopefully in subsequent issues, I want to see if I can line up something about 3D printing and the various things people have been doing, and you know, things of that sort. I'd also really like to have someone volunteer to step forward and do something about handling track. It's a topic which we haven't engaged in the time I've been associated with the flyer, but it's information that I personally would like to see and learn how people are working on hand-laying track. We also, and we've been very fortunate over the past couple issues during the pandemic, of showcasing our members' modeling skills. And those articles have come in very generously from a variety of members, and we're very grateful to have those. And one of the benefits of publishing these sorts of things, even if it's just a photograph and not necessarily a whole article, is that the people who contribute are able to earn points to the NMRA Author Achievement Program certificate. And we'll get along to that further a little later in the presentation. And as you've heard, we always need your help. And what people can do for the flyer is, of course, send us articles. I get a lot of stuff that's sent to me just sort of out of the blue, which is terrific. Ideally, what I would like to get is an email from people who have an idea, and I'm pretty sure that I'll say, that's great, carry on. And you know the topics we're looking for: modeling, suggestions, construction, stories, sources of materials, photographs of models that you've been working on, and any other ideas that you might have that we're looking for. Track laying. How about scenery making? Not just trees, but things like rocks and rock walls, water features, and so on. Those are things that most modelers try and integrate into their layouts, and we could use some articles on that. When I mentioned photos, one of the things we're trying to be very good about is only send us photos that you've taken yourself, so we know it's not a copyright infringement. Or if you do have something that's a photograph that someone else took, that you have permission to use it. You'll see in the coming issue, one of the photographs in an article that I've got in there, I got from the Drake's Oil Well Museum in Titusville, Pennsylvania. And the curator there gave me permission to use it in the flyer. And we've put in the appropriate credit line for that. You should never assume that anything you find on the internet is freely available for you to use. Probably not too great a concern, but you never know. There are people out there who do nothing but look around for copyright infringement, and we could suffer the consequences, and we don't want to do that. One of the things, if people do send us articles, is we don't want any fancy formats. Just send us your basic Word doc. That usually is the very best and easiest for us to work with. And I know it's a habit. It was a habit for me professionally to double space after periods. But frankly, the origin of that is typewriters, when things were more difficult to deal with. And nowadays, with modern computers, you do not have to double space after a period. You can just do single space and everything's fine. And you don't need to hyphenate words anymore. The words themselves will self-justify. And unless, of course, you're doing something with abnormal margins, and we really would prefer that you didn't do that. We've had to send back, not very often, but there have been issues where we've had to go back to an author and have them revise the text into a different format because we couldn't deal with it. The other thing that helps us a great deal in putting together the flyer is that you just send the text without any photographs included in it, and send the text as the photos separately, and mark them photo 1, photo 2, or tree photo, or house photo, or whatever. And in your text, just simply say, if you have a preferred location, just put in a line, insert photo of tree, or whatever, insert photo 1. In particular, in the program that I had to use for this issue, when I block copy a Word doc that comes in which somebody has put in the photographs, they don't reappear in the transfer. They then have to be individually taken out and put in the magazine. So it's a lot easier when I get the components separately. And Marshall had the same thing with the program he used in putting together the flyer. Captions also, if you're going to send us a text and photos and you want captions with those photos, that should also be a separate document. And again, like the text, link it to the specific photograph. That's the way everything comes together much more easily. And as you can see in this slide, this is talks about the caption issue. And for example, it will say the front grille has been cut away from the engine, used with illustration number 2. I don't know whether we're going to continue doing this in the future, but we've always asked in the past for, we definitely will want the short biographical sketch, and we would like a headshot photo. The coming issue doesn't include any of those headshot photos, and we'll see what the reaction to that is. But the short biography can deal with whatever you like to discuss and share with the other members. We do have a file of previous authors' biographical sketches, and we have a file of old photographs, some of which are probably terribly outdated. Naturally, I wrote this here before Marshall's death, and it was true then. I can't claim credit for everything that appears in the flyer. I had been editing all of the pieces and setting the order of the contents and working with Marshall to design the cover, but Marshall was the guy who put things together so that they would get to you. And we're looking for a replacement publisher. And we've been blessed to have the help of Dan Ebert and Bob Sprague to essentially act as proofreaders or co-editors. I'll go through a copy that comes in from, say, Martin. I'll edit it, I'll send it out to both guys, and they can go at it again. And then I get back and sort of adjudicate those different versions. It's can be a time-consuming process, which is why we have a lead time, but we have also flexibility. We try and get everything in no later than a month before, but depending on what happens, we can wait till pretty late in the process, just not this month. So why should you send something to the flyer? Well, you do get to see yourself in print. Importantly, I think you're probably helping other modelers in the division, and you can get author points for the NMRA author program. Martin has done a clinic on this that I think is still available on our website. But basically, to get the author AP, you need a total of 42 points, and those points can come from a variety of sources, but mainly they're for articles that you write or photographs or drawings that you might send to a national publication like NMRA magazine, the regional publication, the local, and of course the flyer. And even if your article has been accepted for publication but hasn't appeared yet, you can still claim that credit towards the author AP. That happened in my case when I was going for the author AP. I had sent an article to the NMRA magazine, and they accepted it, but it took several months. I think, could have been close to a year before it actually appeared, which can happen at that level. That won't happen if you send something to the flyer. I can pretty much guarantee you'll be in the next issue. Page length, 1,200 words, and only half the points can be claimed for electronic publications, like a blog that you may operate on your website. There are a lot of details on the NMRA's achievement program website. One fact, you can get credit for presenting a clinic like this one. And you can, in addition, go to our clinic page on the Potomac Division website, where there is an article about the author AP program by Martin. That's still up there. I checked this past week and it was still there. And like I said, what we're looking for coming issues are articles on track work and scenery, and that could be your start. And I've got the full document here from printing out from the NMRA AP program for author. And there's lots of information in there. Some of it's confusing, but it shouldn't confuse you. So at that point, I'll take your questions or engage in a discussion with anybody who wants to talk about anything. And I know there's a lot of other issues that I think the board is dealing with. Martin, do you have anything you want to add on the issue of author?
Not really. I mean, I was actually surprised. I'd totally forgotten that article was still on the webpage. And there was a recent one in this year in the local as well. So there's a lot of information available. And again, it's one of my areas where I'm an overachiever on. So I know how this one works fairly well. So people have questions, you can just bother me. I spend 8 out of 7 days every week working in my office as an editor. So, but I'll echo Alex's points about submitting stuff on formatting. You don't need any of the cute formatting. We have people for the local, for O-scale trains, etc. Everybody sends me stuff. 3 out of 4 people will send me something that has all kinds of cute formatting in it. Fancy margins, fancy line spacing, pictures sometimes inserted, sometimes not, but it's all full of stuff that I have to work around. I have to rip it all out, start over, strip all the text out, put it into a new file, generally is the fastest way to do it, and start over. So it's basically cost me a couple of hours just getting it to a point where I can start working on it. So this is really important. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. This is easier than easy. Single-spaced word. You know, put a line between paragraphs if you feel like it, but it's still single-spaced. You know, we don't need to see all the fancy stuff. I mean, you're not helping us because we're just going to have to rip it all apart anyhow.
The other thing is, I've had a couple things where people have sent me lines in color.
Oh yeah.
Something that I just had a thing that came in the other day, and it was like an off black. It was like a gray. And
yeah.
When I laid it out, I suddenly realized this looks completely different. I had to go in and change it back to just plain black.
Well, you know, it's also, you know, footers and headers, and people insert footnotes. Oh. Well, I don't know where that footnote's going to end up when it goes into the actual publication. So I have to rip that all out, take that coding out, and actually working around that stuff it's easier to insert it than it is to remove it. I think Word does that deliberately to confound people. It's annoying, but it's very workable, but it's work. So I do the layout for the local as well. So I get the raw documents, and they're in all different types of fonts, line spacing, extra spacing before and after lines, after paragraphs. So, first thing I do is I have to remove it all, change it to one font, change it to single space, copy and paste it into the template I'm using for making up the local. And then go back and figure out, well, where were those photos that were supposed to go in here where? And figuring out how to fit them in. It's a lot easier if you just put, end of the sentence, photo 1 in parentheses. And then somewhere after the paragraph, this is where photo 1 belongs. Okay, that makes my life a lot easier and faster to work with. So all the cute stuff doesn't, you may think it looks good. Maybe people like to do it because it makes them feel, look how pretty my article is. We're just going to rip it all apart anyhow.
One thing that I have said to individuals is if you want to, in addition to sending me a plain text, photographs, and captions, if you want to send yet an additional PDF that you've put out with the photographs and captions in it, the way you think it should be presented, that can be a big assistance to me. Always acknowledging the fact that we may have to relocate things or eliminate things just to meet the needs of the publication.
Exactly. One of my columnists for O Scale Trains does that. He sends me a text file, he sends me 25 photos, and then he sends me a PDF of what he thinks it should look like. So, I'll print out the PDF, put it on the stand next to me, and I'll have an idea of like, well, I think this, then it takes the guesswork out of my hands. Like, well, is this really the right photo that goes here? Oh yeah, that's what he wants there. Okay, fine, good. That clarifies it very nicely for me. But not many people are going to do that. I thought, but it can be useful. But changing this around to getting people published, it's not hard. And the AP part of it's even easier. You only need to publish in the you get half your points in the flyer and the other half in the local, and you're done. You don't even need a national publication. It's not even necessary. And I can tell you, as Alex just confirmed, both of the division and regional publications, they're not going to be sitting on your article for more than an issue or 3. They all need material. And both are electronic, both have electronic, well, Potomac, the flyers all electronic. The local is, the e-local is open-ended, running roughly around 50 to 55 pages. The first 12 go to the people who are, is the same as what gets a hard copy. We still have about 50 or 60 members that are getting hard copy. That's slowly decreasing over time as those number of members decreases over time. Interesting correlation there. As they go away, so do those paper print copies. But the first 12 pages are identical in both. So, because I make them up the same way. They're made out of the same base template. But so you have 32, 42 pages of article, and it takes a while to, that's a lot of space. Not many people write more than 5 pages. So 5 pages, 10 points. You can crank out your 42 points, or you need 21 points in the local. You can crank that out pretty quickly. It doesn't take a lot of articles. This is probably one of the easiest AP certificates to get, in my opinion. I mean, I fully accept I'm so far off the bell curve on publication work that my mentality is skewed on it, but I think it's terribly easy because everything's sitting there waiting for you, and the outlets are ready to accept your content.
I know a lot of people feel uncertain about expressing themselves, and they had a hard time with writing, and it would be a lot easier for them to hand-lay switches or hand gouge out a turntable pit. But that should not be hindrance because, you know, I'm personally willing to work with an author to make their contributions
Yeah.
look presentable and lively and valuable.
Well,
And
the other,
sure,
the other,
Mark feels the same way.
yeah, and the other thing is they don't have to write a 20-page article to start with.
No.
You know, the points go down to, I think, quarter pages.
Yeah.
So even a small photograph, I saw this by the side of the road when I was driving by, so I hopped out, took a picture of it, and sent it in. And you tell, 3 sentences, well, that's maybe a quarter to a half a page. You've got some points. It's that easy. So, you start small and build up. I mean, okay, so I had a couple of hundred publications in my technical world, but when I started out writing for model train magazines, I had 0. I had a bunch of, I slowly got stuff together into the Flyer and the Local. And then I got daring and put something in O-scale trains, thinking, well, who knows? Maybe they'll take it, maybe they won't, I don't know. And they very happily took it, and they took everything else afterwards. And it turns out, well, it's really easy to get to 42 points if you publish a fair amount in the national magazine, but it's not necessary. You can do this all within the NMRA's local publications.
And if you have your own model railroad blog,
Yes.
that also can help you get your 21 points for internet publication.
That'll get you halfway there, right there.
So it's an easy way to document your own work is having your own blog.
Right.
And
I can remember
take stuff you've done for your blog and turn it into an article for the Flyer.
Yeah, you can rewrite it and turn around and do whatever. I mean, the ease of this is such that years ago when I gave a clinic for this at one of the mini cons, there was somebody in the audience who said, well, I did all the illustrations for so-and-so's book. Does that count?
Sure.
Yes, it counts. He had like 50 pages of illustrations in a 300-page book. Like, well, I think you're probably done.
Yeah.
Photocopy your pages, put a staple through it, fill out the paperwork, and send it in.
Yeah.
It doesn't, this is a lot more achievable than people think. Oh yeah, one thing that's interesting is ways to rack up points fast. It's harder. It is harder. I grant you that. Is prototype drawings. You can do scale prototype drawings. Think about the hundreds, I guess, of prototype drawings that Harold Russell published in, like, you name the model train magazine, he's in it somewhere. Over sometime in the last whatever. He's NMR number 14 or something.
Yes, I wanted to throw that in there because I actually spoke to him the other day and connected with one of my projects, and I was delighted to learn he was Master Model Railroader number 14.
Yeah, and he comes.
As he said to me, he said, and the other 13 are dead, and I'm probably not far behind. But I said, God bless you for being there.
Well, I've got an article for him from O-scale trains.
Awesome.
He sent me his layout article, which I don't know that that's ever been seen, but so but I hate to say it, lots of cutesy formatting in his text file, but that's okay. I'm still happy to have it. I'll take it. I'll work on it, make it happen. But but you get extra points for those drawings, those scale prototype drawings. You can rack up a lot of points very quickly with those if you go out and take photos of some local depot, measure it accurately, draw the line drawings with all the scale numbers on it. I think they might be 6 points a page or something. They're very high point. Total.
And after you try that, you'll probably find writing an article easier.
I would think, well, some people are really good at CAD and drawing and stuff. The stuff from Harold, the last 5 or 6 articles I got from him, they were in a CAD software that I had to use Adobe Illustrator to manipulate. The last one, it was a direct conversion, but which I was totally shocked and surprised by, that my computer said, oh, do you want to just convert that to a PDF file? I thought, thank you, hit return quickly before it changes its mind. because from a PDF file, I can turn it into anything.
I have
But-
a question, Alex.
Please.
There you are,
Barry.
Brian.
Hi. I did a 96-page book for the C&O Historical Society. How is that calculated?
Oh, boy.
Oh,
I-
wow. I think a book.
96 pages. I think you probably have it.
Yeah.
Well,
Honestly.
it's a combination of text, captions, and of course, a lot of photographs.
They all count. They all count.
Let me see what it says. I got it right here.
Yeah.
And by the way, Brian, thank you for your contribution to the coming flyer. You were also in that cutting machine. So-
Right, yeah, you're certainly
That's
welcome.
great.
I'm glad. And that leads me to another question, not directly specific at that, but I'll hold that until you
Okay.
had a chance to see if you have something to share with me about that book.
Well, with a page at 1,200 words, you know, just.
Yeah, I thought, I'm not, well, I would have to go back to a Word document, which would be simple enough to come up with a word. I could come up with a word count.
Yeah.
That, I would
That's
assume.
not as critical. Honestly,
Really?
it's
Yeah, no.
because
It's
a page it's approximately 1,200. Different publications, it's anywhere from 800 to 1,200.
Mhm.
It's highly variable. But at 96 pages,
If you're using Word, you see at the bottom of the page.
yeah, Word will give it to you
It gives you the full word.
Oh, yeah, I have a word count for each page, well, I guess it's by the page that I did it. I think it might be by chapter, which, you know, flowed over multiple pages in Word.
well,
I do have a word count.
I'm looking through this stuff I printed out from the NMRA AP author
Yeah.
page, and I actually don't see any reference to books, but
that's because not many people do
no.
write a book.
Oh, wow, yeah, that
Uh,
makes sense.
I'll tell you right now, check with Dave Chance, but I'd say if you've got a 96-page book, even if
Yeah.
you've got a quarter, even if it's a quarter of the pages count as points, you're probably there because it's a national publication. It's available to the world.
Yep.
Right.
Ernie, you're
Okay,
muted.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, my second question was, it's not so much of a question as is it a statement. It's just, I'm happy as the opportunity presents itself to contribute to our own newsletter. In my world, which was music, arranging, composing music, very little of my product was the result of me sitting around the house and saying, I want to do that. The vast majority of my work was the result of a phone call and somebody saying, I need X, usually with the United States Navy band when I was still with them. So the reason that the cutting article came, well, it's not really an article, but the little thing that I sent you for that,
Mhm.
it was simply because it was an assignment driven. You know, the phone call came and therefore, you know, it was, oh yeah, I could do something on that. So I don't know if you're able to think, there's so many topics, but I guess what I'm saying is that if you have an assignment or you need something and it fits within my expertise, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you. Sometimes I have done that in the past when I know somebody in particular is well-versed in a topic. I'll actually proactively reach out to them. So I'll make a note of that, Brian, and reach out to you as soon as I come up with an assignment for you.
I suspect that will take a matter of seconds,
Well, thanks.
Probably.
maybe minutes.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Alex is going to be shy about taking you up
All right.
on that. But Brian, I'd say you probably very easily have it. The only problem is providing a copy of it to Dave Chance.
Well, actually, you can just, you see Matt more often, presumably, because I know you were just over there. And Matt's our own AP coordinator, and I know he's in touch with Dave Chance. So
Yeah.
I noticed that at him referencing that when he sent in your stuff. So for your cars, which, by the way, once again, I thought they were just terrific.
No, you should.
We judged Alex's car yesterday, and
I got an
really-
email about it.
Oh,
really nice stuff. Really nice stuff.
yeah, thank you. One of the cars there was actually Marshall's last choice for the cover for this coming issue. And it's the one that got me in touch with Harold Russell and
Is that
another
right?
MMR up in upstate New York, Richard Sengies, who actually wrote the definitive. It's a piece, just to tease it a little bit, about the original 1865 Densmore oil tank car. The one that first hauled oil from Drake's Well in Titusville, Pennsylvania. And Harold Russell drew an illustration of this original 21-foot car. And Dick Sengies in New York worked with a petroleum geologist for 6 months in researching the topic of the Densmore oil tank car, working out of the Titusville Museum, and wrote the definitive research paper about the oil car for the Petroleum History Institute, because there's an institute for everything. So
that's a interesting car there, Alex. That was the first car I tried to model
really
for the car AP. And I even had a trip to Titusville to see the flat car with no vats on it and talk to the curator there that showed me the fact that the car they had at Titusville was not
correct.
a true replica of the real thing. A gentleman from the Smithsonian.
Yep.
And she produced me an article or an email that said, that's not it. The wheels aren't right and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, boom. So I went from that and jumped back into the Kalmbach book of the 24 amazing projects and took the horizontal tank car as my first. But the Densmore was very interesting because that's up near my neck of the woods where I'm from, way back.
Yeah.
And I was up there last summer again. Wow.
But when I was talking to Susan Beats, the
Yes.
curator, when I talked to her, she told me that they've dismantled that replica because it was falling apart. The hoops around the barrels had deteriorated and it was slipping down, and they were fundraising to restore it. And then they were going to put it indoors in one of their facilities.
Right. I do have pictures of the flat car that's there now with all the brake assembly and the whole gambit. If you ever want that, just more go ahead and share it with you. It was crazy.
Yeah.
A question I have about that, do you have authentic oil spilled on your layout as well?
Actually, where is it?
Uh-oh. Should have asked.
I'll put it on the screen.
He actually, I think he actually has some oil.
This was a nice touch. Dick Sengies in upstate New York
There you go.
suggested that I look around for some actual Pennsylvania crude from Drake's Well. Now, I found this little bottle on eBay at an exorbitant price because the museum at Titusville has been closed by the state because of COVID restrictions. And I thought possibly their store might sell it, but they're not open. So I found this being sold by an antique store in Pennsylvania. And I took a little Q-tip and dipped it around the spouts and the intake, the loading hatch of the models of the Densmore to give it a kind of glistening little shine and a touch of authenticity. And as Matt Thompson said to me in an email, he said, if you want to believe that's real Drake's Oil Well, then we're going to go along with you.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a nice touch.
I love that.
Yeah.
So any other questions, comments, discussion on anything?
Actually, I need to bail out of here. We've got an errand that we need to run, and it's really time that I do that.
Well, Brian, thanks again.
It's great to see you all.
See you, Brian.
All
Thank
right,
you.
see you all later.
So actually, I've been working on my layout quite a bit because of COVID, and I've added rounded corners in my backdrops, and also I've added a lift out section to get between the two sections of the entrance of my apartment. So I'd be willing to do an article on that. I did photograph that, and I can do drawings too.
Well, that'd be terrific, Tom. We'll look forward to seeing it. You know, it's
Grief, my mail's in.
just send a Potomac flyer. The address is in copies of the flyer
Okay.
on the website. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, Alex and we didn't mention this, but the bigger and better your photos are, the better off it is. You know, okay. I deal with a lot of photos that are, people think that their cell phone takes a great photo, and when they send it to me, it's 200 kilobytes. And it's less than 100 DPI, and it's pretty useless. 300 by 300 at minimum, which makes your photo somewhere between 2 and 5 megabytes, generally. And the great thing about digital cameras, you can take a lot of photos, and it doesn't really cost you anything other than you're disturbing a bunch of electrons. I take 5 to 10 photos of everything that I ever write, every step along the way, whether I write the article or not, because I can go back and look and see what the heck I did wrong and look at the photo. It's a great tool. The camera is, I will tell you, is the harshest critic you will ever meet. It will not lie to you. It's merciless. And it will tell you every fault that you've ever made. But
You do see a lot of detail that you don't pick up on looking at it physically. I mean, when you start looking at the picture and all of a sudden you pick up something like that isn't exactly straight, or I found when I was doing the cars that
you
my
find stuff you forget.
the decaling was a big deal with the
Mhm.
picture, because it just, I don't know what it was, but for some reason the picture would tell you it was straight or not. It seemed like.
Yeah, like I said, it's the harshest critic. So, you know, the basic digital cameras probably perfectly adequate. Apparently you can get high quality photos of large size from a cell phone. I have no idea how to do that, but I know it can be done. I'll go back to Harold Russell again. The photos he sent me were somewhere between 30 and 40 megabytes.
Mm.
They're all TIFF files. They're massive. My computer didn't even want to move them. I tried to move them as one block. My computer had a very hard, well, it refused to move 30 of those files off the DVD he sent onto the desktop of my computer. I had to move them one at a time. That's a little bit on the overkill size, but I'll tell you, you can blow them up as big as you want, and they don't even begin to distort. So if you take a 200 kilobyte photo, you can't increase its size without it pixelating. You're very limited. So, you know, bad photos don't work very well. It's, you know, they have to be in.
One comment
Yes.
on photographs. MR, Tony Custer,
Mhm.
photographs in 300 DPI,
Yep.
10 inches. If you get into the TIFF files, they're too big and they can't move it around, and they don't want to deal with it. So they're not going to be inclined to consider your article for publication if they can't move the pictures around. The
Yeah.
pictures are your greatest return on your modeling activity, how good it is or what needs to be improved.
It's absolutely true.
Your brain will, your eyes will fully fool your brain. The pictures are the best.
That's absolutely true.
Text, see what's really good, and go from there.
No, it's absolutely true. Russell sends me the huge files. I can work with them, but That's an anomaly. Most people are sending me, 2 to 10 megabyte photos. The hard ones are the ones that are under a megabyte, the little tiny photos. Just cannot expand them in size. You're stuck with them. And they're not good. It may look beautiful on your cell phone. Well, you blow it up to 8.5 by 11 on a page and try to look at it on your computer screen, you find out that it's a really bad photo. And so, I need, I'm looking at cover shots and I'm looking at 12 megabytes for a cover photo.
I don't have a cell phone, iPhone, or anything like that to take pictures, but I know they have a very, very small aperture, and you
Yep.
can take excellent pictures, much easier and better than you can take with a 35 millimeter camera. It is, they do require some, expertise about how to convert the picture, but they take excellent photographs, and it is good for somebody who wants to you write an article, get your iPhone out if you have one, most people do, and shoot away.
Absolutely. But again, I think they need to learn how to take a decent picture as instead of a thumbnail photo. Those thumbnail photos are easy, but they're hard to work with on a publication. Now, maybe not too bad for the flyer. The local, it's a little messy sometimes, but you get into O-Scale Trains or one of the other magazines, it gets messy real fast. I mean, I just can't use them.
I got this little stand.
Yeah.
It's a modified, it has a tripod base, and it can also be used as a selfie stick. And you can take an iPhone and put it in there so that you get stability if you're taking a shot of your layout. This one even comes with a little Bluetooth clicker so that I can trigger the photograph without touching the camera. So you can set it up in such a ways to take the photograph on your layout. You could even use if you want to, risk it, you can actually pick it up and move it into a narrow space, but then again, you lose potentially some of the stability in taking it. But
The tripod is as important as a camera.
It can.
My father, 60 years ago, you pick up a camera and use it. You use a tripod. You cannot get a good picture holding it by your hands.
Yeah.
For modeling work, where you have something going to take a longer time to expose than taking a picture outside in full sun, where the aperture go whoop, like that. If you're taking anything for any time length, you need a tripod to get a good picture. Otherwise, it's blurry.
Now, I'm always using the tripod in my shop. It stays in my shop. It's always there. The camera's in it. When I get to a point where I think, well, I should take some photos of this before I forget what I'm doing. It's a good stage for the next article. I just grab the thing, bring it over to the workbench, set up everything, and take 20 photos from all different angles. And I'll sort it out later, but I capture them in advance. And that leads to another point: backdrops. You don't want what's behind me in your photo.
Could
I use?
Start in just a second before you go off. Another item I would suggest is to get a freezer bag and put some type of heavy. I use clippings from my machining work, or you can use some other type of heavy material like sand. Put it in a freezer bag about maybe third full, and you can set your camera on the layout, rest it on the bag, and you get stability on that without having the tripod, which you can reach into the layout and take a picture at track level.
That's a really good tip. That's a really good tip, Andrew. What I was going to go into was using a backdrop. The cheapest thing, cheap thing I like, you go over to Michael's and you get the foam board trifold that they sell for science fairs. And you can set that up on your workbench, unfold it into 3 pieces, and put your model in front of it. You got a white space in front of it. I have a blue absorbent paper that I use on the base underneath of most of my photos. And if I set the camera right, that blue almost goes away. Not 100%, but it fades off pretty good if I set the lighting settings correctly. But the nice thing about the foam board is it's transportable. You fold it up, take it anywhere you want. And if it's too tall, cut it in half. Now you have two backdrops. I have one that's only like 12 inches high. I used to take it to the contest room at the regional conventions to put behind the model so I could take photos of everything. So, you know, it's cheap. It's like $5-10, or it used to be. I haven't been to Michael's in a long time, but it's a cheap, easy thing you can put in front of, on your workbench or in front of any model. I even put them up on I used to put it up on my, on the layout when I was building it, just set that behind stuff so I could see what I was doing. So, you know, a tripod, a backdrop, a nice cloth underneath everything, all of a sudden your photos begin to look a lot better.
Yeah,
I
and
think
I think,
Alex's thing with that that
Yeah.
remote
And that remote's nice.
remote clicker, the remote thing, that's one of the biggest things I've seen with cameras, because a lot of your cameras, if you're more than a 30th of a second in terms of shutter speed, if you're shooting less than that, and a lot of low light we deal with model railroads are that situation. You're shooting slower than a 30th of a second. You can get a blur, it's not going to be sharp. And you're going to see that movement of the finger trying to push that shutter button. It's that remote thing's a big deal. I can remember that from my days of shooting basketball and all that in high school.
sure.
And them telling us about remote shutters and all. We had remote shutters in our cameras. You were talking about the backdrop, Martin. Matt Thompson has a piece of, I guess, like masonite that might be about 3 feet long that he moves around his layout that he uses as a backdrop versus having a backdrop through the entire layout, and he gets some very nice pictures by doing that kind of thing.
It doesn't take anything fancy or anything. It just takes a little thinking and just like a little creativity. You can put something behind it instead of the concrete walls or the cinder block or the bookshelf behind me, and change everything. And change the entire complexion of your, you know, for your article.
Another thing on photographs, there are programs online. I think you can take a trial, but if you want more than 30 days, you have to pay for it. It's not too very terribly expensive, but what you can do is you take a scene and you can change the distance, you know, shoot 4, 5, 6, 10 pictures, and they have them all coordinated together to give you the best image from right up front to as far back as you go. And that will greatly improve your photograph. So we're just trying, it gives you a tremendous depth of field.
Yeah.
That was something that I know in my my training from my fire investigator, they taught us when we're taking pictures you would take 4 or 5 pictures of the same thing, but we would vary the f-stop on the camera so that your depth of focus would help you out. And usually by shooting a little bit up, a little bit down, or varying your lens speed, one speed up or one speed down would assist you in getting the target. And out of 5 pictures, you get one that was what you really wanted. With that type of photography, it's very black and white, and the shades of gray are a big thing, which for some people, that's what it's all about in photography, is dealing with the shades of gray versus the color. You know, black and white photography is phenomenal. Look at Winston Lincoln, what he was able to do with stinking light bulbs, you know, flash bulbs, and he would draw your attention to it. And some of the magnificent pictures that he took.
Oh, the program I'm talking about is depth. You can it renders the various pictures at different depths and give you the best quality together, and produces a picture that's rendered out of maybe 3, 4, 5, 10, 12 pictures.
Yeah, I've seen that used. I can't remember the name of it, but I've seen it used, and it does give you some phenomenal. Focus, I think, is one
Halcyon Focus or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. Someone was demonstrating that somewhere at a model railroad thing, as I recollect, showed us. I just don't remember where it was now.
Well, 4 o'clock.
Okay. Well, I'm going to stop the recording here if that's okay with everybody.
Sure.